This is Melissa Fredine. She has experience with adoptive services. She's here to talk about her adoption experience and share her story with us today. Welcome, Melissa. Thanks for being here.
Thank you. Melissa, tell me about your experience with adoption.
Well, I've adopted 4 children through the county system. We were licensed for adoption and foster care at the same time, and our intent originally was to adopt. We have maintained our foster care license and done foster care also. Our first child we adopted when she moved in when she was 7, adopted her when she was 8. Our next child we adopted when she was just about 5. And our next child was placed with us at birth. She is the same birth mom as the first child. And then our last one, we just got a call for foster care, and it was kind of an emergency placement. We had to agree to keep him should it not work out. So sort of the concurrent planning FOSTA adopt mode. And we just finalized with him about 2 weeks ago. So I have 4 children total.
Did you know a lot about the adoption process when you adopted your first child?
Our first adoption was about 10 years ago, and we went through all of the classes that we're required to go to, and my background is in education, and thought that would be helpful. However, the adoption social services world is a whole new world, and so there's a lot of acronyms, there's a lot of my goodness, a lot of paperwork, a lot of just different things that I didn't know, that I did learn throughout the time. But the tough part, I think, is that you can watch all the videos you want, you can read all the books, you can hear from other parents, but until you get that child in your home with their special needs, whatever those might be, I don't know if you're ever totally ready for that until you actually get the child in your home. So it was, I think you learn along the way, and it's fun and it's a challenge all at the same time. So it's kind of, you don't know what you don't know.
What would you say the hardest part is when it comes to adopting a child?
Hardest part about adopting a child? Well, it is, it's a wonderful process because we are becoming parents and our family is growing, and that is wonderful. However, for the children that we got, it's such a loss because they were removed from their homes or from their birth parents, and not for a good reason. So, the best thing for that child would have been to have their birth moms healthy and not chemically dependent in their family, and that didn't happen. So that's really difficult. So it's a bit of a definite process that you go through, especially if you work with the adoptive family, and maybe some of you might have a group meeting with the birth family and the social workers and the probation officer and maybe the courts, and talking about what's best for the child and what the birth parents need to do to get the child back. And so you're involved in that process, and that's really difficult because you might know some of the lack of care they're getting. However, your job is to be supportive to them. So it's a long process, and it's kind of a roller coaster. And the social workers I've worked with have been really fabulous, and they keep you up to date on things. But one day, everything's looking like the paper's going to go through and everything's fine, and then all of a sudden, maybe a relative comes forward and says, "Oh, maybe I want to." And so then you're back on the, I know I need to attach this child, and I know I need to love this child, and I'm going to do this, but they might be gone tomorrow. My kids all also had visits with their birth family, the last 2 did, on a daily basis, and that was hard, to bring to someone else, knowing that maybe they're all supervised, but there might be on drugs or alcohol, so it's difficult knowing that the child's going back into that environment even for a short amount of time. But it's so letting the process play out, to put it, I guess, is a challenge. There were days maybe when a social worker came to my house and they just said, "I want this to be all done," and they kind of reassure you, you've got to let it work. And I was there for the child, and that's what I needed to focus on. So a lot of meetings making sure everything is straightened out. But obviously, it's all.
What additional information would have been helpful to you about the child before you actually adopted them?
Well, when you read the little blurb that the social worker so wonderfully put together on the child, you see the word, lots of energy. That may mean, severe ADHD or ODD or, that kind of a thing. A lot of the kids in our kids all came from foster care child welfare system have reactive attachment disorder, fetal alcohol syndrome disorder, ADHD, neglect, abuse, and those are all lifelong issues that maybe are dealt with quicker than others. Even if the child was harmed or neglected very young, that's something that some kind of need to deal with in their life, and it comes out in different ways. My kids all had siblings too in different homes, and so that was another piece of that puzzle that we didn't realize. So not only for say holidays, am I sending maybe some birth families cards? I'm sending brothers and sisters and all these people. So the extended family. I think the social workers did a nice job telling us as much as they knew. But some of these kids come into the system overnight, and so they don't know what their past may have been. They don't know if they have a healthy attachment or how much violence they witnessed or were a part of. When we initially did the process, our social worker finished the process with us and did all the homesteading, all the paperwork, and had all our closets nice and neat and clean, and then said, "How would you like a 7-year-old girl?" So it happened to be a quick process for us. We had quite a bit of information on her, but then we were very new, and we had I'm sure love will fix everything, we can just love her to death and that will work. And that is the furthest thing from the truth. But I haven't run into many other adoptive parents who at least don't think that a little bit. So we had to get additional training on every disorder you can think of. The typical behavior management deals didn't work at all. So you have to be very creative. And the social workers don't always know. They can't say, okay, here's this child. She has reactive attachment disorder and ADHD. I think we should try this because all in different homes, different things work too. And when you add a new child into your home, if you already have one, you have to remember it affects the entire family. So just as you would with a birth child. So it's just something to think about. But I would say make sure to ask a lot of questions. And if you don't think the answer is right, ask them again. Take them in to their physicians that they've seen and question the physician. Get as much information gathering as you can, and keep asking the questions.
Okay. How does the age of adoption affect, positively or negatively, the child and their adjustment to their adoptive home?
Yeah. Typically when a couple goes to adopt, I would say most of the time they want a baby and infant, obviously, because that's, if you were to have a child of your own, that's what you would get. Like I said in the beginning, our kids at adoption age were 8, 4, and then the other two we got pretty young. So the first two children have reactive attachment disorder, which is a challenge on a daily basis. And it's a big challenge. The other two don't have that, and they are easier to parent in some capacities. The resiliency level of every child and every adult is different. So you can sometimes get a child who has been even in a not great home at age 7 or 8, but if they form that attachment, sometimes they can take that along and attach with another person. So I would say that would be the key for the age. There's babies that you might get in foster care or adoption that are stiff. You'll hold them and they don't even cuddle into you. And so there's trauma and things like that. So age is relevant, but it doesn't always mean anything. Of course, when you get an older child, I'm always thinking, if only, if only. They could have intervened sooner. If only the first time they took my oldest daughter away, she was about 2 or 3. If only they could have kept her then, what lessened harm that she had. So you know, you kind of play those things over in your head. The good and bad of the older child is our one that moved in. She was put in placement at 3, so she doesn't have a lot of memories of her abuse and neglect. So she really hasn't dealt with that. We've done therapy definitely, but it's going to come out at some point. So you know, it's kind of like, would I rather have it in my face, let's deal with it right now, or would I rather have it maybe suppressed? So I'm kind of rambling now, and I apologize. Getting an infant does not guarantee anything more than you're going to have them longer, get to know them longer. You'll know their history, you know their past. A lot of times it is easier, but definitely not. It's not always.